I'm talking about the joys of my adolescence. My first guest exactly fits that description. As one of my favorite film critics, Margaret Hinksman, pointed out this week, in the 1950s, Hollywood created two blonde goddesses. One was Marilyn Monroe, and she was destroyed by the star system. The other was my next guest, and she defied it and survived. After a period of retirement from film, she makes a comeback in the film of Agatha Christie's The Mirror Cracked. She plays a Hollywood superstar involved in murder. Here she proves she's still in great shape as she's interrogated by Scotland Yard Inspector Mr. Edward Fox.
Weren't you and Mr. Ross?
No, Inspector. That's ancient history.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Novak. As I said, that's your comeback movie, isn't it? Because you left Hollywood and went to live in the hills with your husband and loads of animals and things. What, in fact, persuaded you to come back?
Well, I really don't think of it as a comeback. I think it was just a matter of priority. I suddenly had priorities that were more important, but then when suddenly I found something that was, exciting to do, part of it was nostalgia. I think to be able to work with the people that I knew in the 50s, and mostly, perhaps, maybe it was just the fact that it was a chance to laugh at and send up a period of which, at that time, we all took much too seriously.
Well, that's right, of course, because in the movie there's Liz Taylor, there's Rock Hudson, there's Tony Curtis, all of whom were kicking around in the 50s when you were being built up in Hollywood as this great star. What kind of memories did it bring back then of that time for you?
Well, mixed emotions, because it was a difficult time. It was really, well, it was a lot of stress at the time because the star system was such that you had to work under tremendous pressure. There was so much emphasis put on the look, on the image. They never really cared about what you were inside. It was as long as you projected the right image, and that usually meant how much lipstick, how you wore your hair, things like that. And there was such a need to always want to express yourself and be yourself, but it wasn't the time.
But as a young girl, when you were growing up, didn't you want to be a film star? I mean,
no.
You didn't?
No, I
Why
had no
not?
idea.
Didn't you?
Well, actually, when I was growing up, my sister and I both wanted to be veterinarians. We used to have a sign in the window. We kept all stray pets here, and we'd take little birds and different things, and with steam on the teapot, we'd nurse them back to health and do things, whatever we could. We just had a different interest in life. It was something that just happened, really.
But, I mean, did you go in for beauty contests and things like that?
Well, I was a very shy child, and my mother was very much trying to get me out of that and be a little bit more outgoing. And so she had me join a club at the time, a teenage club, in order to try to have me get to be more outgoing. But on the other hand, I wanted to work behind the scenes. And the lady there sort of pushed me out and said, no, you should be out in front. And so she started me in modeling, and modeling is what got me into pictures.
But you were embarrassed by yourself then, were you? I mean, what was it? Was it your voice or your deep voice?
Well, I think I preferred the other. I preferred being behind the camera. More interested in that than I was in being filmed or being looked at. I was shy, yes.
Of course, you came under the wing, if that's the right word, of Harry Cohn, who's either described as a mogul or a monster, whichever way you look at him. But he was one of the last great impresarios, wasn't he, of picking out stars like yourself and making them in his image. He saw you, it said, as a replacement for Rita Hayworth. Is that right?
I think the story got changed around a little bit exaggerated. There was always a number of people that were being built and groomed for stardom, you know, and I think at the time we had about 10 girls and about 8 men. Jack Lemmon was one of them, being groomed, and a couple of us made it in that group. I don't think it was really a matter of trying to take Rita Hayworth's place, but he was a strange man, but there was a lot to say for him, really. When you think about it, when I look back, I mean, he put the fear of God in me. It was terrifying, really. Oh, God. To walk in his office and to see, and he was so, well, he was like a big gorilla, like King Kong, really. But on the other hand, he knew his business. He knew what he wanted. He knew the kind of films that should be made, and he knew how to get his results, and mostly by putting fear into people, really. I mean, he did like to work with fear as his main hold over everybody.
That was the fear of what? The fear of the sack? The fear of...
Just of being screamed at and yelled at, rather like that lady on television here that teaches the dogs, and she goes, "Sit."
Oh, yes, Barbara.
Walkies, walkies. I mean, she has a kind of a Harry Cohn. Oh, I wouldn't say that to her.
No, she's a
but
lot
I mean, she
nicer,
has that
I'm sure,
effect.
Harry
She has that effect. The same thing. In other words, she gets the result because you think, by God, I better do it right or else.
Oh, yes, right. But what did he want to? Did he want to change you physically? Did he?
Well, yes, that. In other words, there was always formulas. They felt, well, this worked, that worked. Let's put it together. In fact, when they sent me to the makeup room at the studio the first time, and I sat in the makeup chair, and he looked at me, not trying to see what features I had that might be good in bringing out, but he looked and he thought, well, now let's see. Let's try a Joan Crawford mouth and this one's Marilyn Monroe hair, and you know, and all the different, and he put it all together. And by the time you got out of the chair, you were so insecure because I looked in the mirror. It was absolutely frightening. I didn't look at all like myself. So there was constantly a little bit of rebellion, I suppose, but I didn't do it outwardly because I felt, well, they were experts, and I didn't really want to say anything too much, but I'd go in the back in the dressing room and rub off the lipstick and try to compromise, put on something a little different. But it was mostly the look that they tried to change.
Did you take what I said at the beginning when I introduced you, that, I mean, they created Marilyn and that the system destroyed her? Do you believe that yourself?
Well, I think that, not just in show business, I think in every walk of life, if you place too much importance on your work, on being successful, on making it, I think you're in for a lot of trouble. I do, I really do. I think you're going to get physically sick, emotionally ill. Something's going to happen. Something's got to give. I think a person in life has to have more values than that. I think you've got to make yourself have more interests than just your work, than just your job.
You gained a reputation, did you not? I know there's a hearsay, but it's what I read, of being quite difficult on one or two movies in this time in Hollywood. Was that because you were trying to assert yourself, that you were trying to say, I don't want any of this?
I think, to a large degree, they got very upset when I would smear off the lipstick and redo my hair. But not only that, yes, they would mind if you would try to discuss how you wanted to play the role. I mean, after all, it was not just the fact that they were the boss, but at that time there was less rights for women as well, in the sense that, I mean, it was enough trying to say what you want, yet alone being a woman saying it. I would always want to discuss it and try to bring in my own self, if I could, to a part. I felt I had something to offer in my own way. But it wasn't always received too well.
Now, was there much bitchiness among the other people who were coming through with you, or being groomed similarly as you were for stardom, and then when you became a star?
Well, not to the extent, for instance, that we show in our film, They're Cracked. Of course, there was always competition. It was very keen, and as far as competition-wise, many people wanting to try to be successful. However, I don't think there was as much as a lot of people would think.
All right, then. So this scene that's coming up now, which
it's a bit exaggerated, but one thing about that scene, you see, is the contrast. Because in our film, what we were trying to bring out was the contrast between the English countryside and Hollywood in the 50s.
And we go to the clip then.
There are really only two things I dislike about you.
Really? What are they?
Your face.
That's no. Going back to the time when you decided to leave Hollywood, was that an on-the-spur, the moment decision, or was it a careful one? Had you thought about it for a long time?
Well, again, it was, I think, the realization that there had to be more to life. And I was wanting very much to break out of that. There's such a tendency when you live in Hollywood to feel that you have to go to the parties and the different functions that go on all the time, and you lose sight of more important things, living in life, other than just in the group of Hollywood. So I felt that I needed to get away, to live somewhere else, but it was difficult to be able to make the move. You know, it's like you know you should do something, but you think, oh God, to go and load up a van and move, what's important, what should I move, what shouldn't I? But then it somehow came easy, because I had a few things that really I took as signs that it was time to make the move and made it simple to make the move.
Like what?
Well, I'd had quite a bout of bad luck for a while. It started with an accident on a film that I was making where this horse fell on me, and I was in the hospital for quite a long time. And then after that, it seemed to be a series of things that followed, and one of the things also was a car accident. Well, not a car accident, it was actually a mudslide that came down and pushed the house down the hill. And it knocked, first of all, a tree came down and knocked the driver's license off the back of the car. I kept going, because by that time I'd had so much bad luck, I thought, well, what can I do? When I came home, the whole house was sliding down the mountain. But it made it simple to make the move. I thought, my God, now I don't have to decide. It's easy. So I loaded up my paintings, because that was important to me, and my poetry and things like that, and let all the Hollywood clothes and all the glamour go down the drain, and went and moved to, I already had the house on Gull House on the sea in Carmel. It's a beautiful place, but it was a second home then. And then, of course, it became my first home and my first life. Almost my beginning. I feel almost like it's where I was born.
Mm. And of course, you had the very good sense to marry somebody who was not involved in Hollywood as well, didn't you?
Well, that led to that, of course,
yes, that's
because
right.
then, of course, I was able to have the animals that I always wanted, and I got a number of horses and things and started leading a beautiful life. And of course, when you have the horses and the animals, then you need a veterinarian. Set out to find the best one, really scouted it out, got the best veterinarian there, and found out he was just the best for everything for me.
So you married him?
Yes, I married him.
Is it true that when Hollywood rings up, like producer things, he won't take the phone, or he bangs the phone down on them?
No.
It's not true,
no.
though.
No, but he does get very upset when he's answering his calls, because he gets emergency calls, and he rushes to the phone thinking it's some horse out in the field caught in barbed wire or something, and then they say it's the Hollywood Reporter or something like that. It's very disturbing, because after all, his work is life and death.
Mm-hmm. Now, finally, having done this film, has it given you a taste for getting back into making movies or not?
Well, it was a really fine experience working on this. I enjoyed it so much, and so it has made a difference. It has made me want to go back and do something occasionally. I don't think it's something I'd ever want to get back in full-time, and of course my husband wouldn't want me to either. See, I work with my husband a great deal. When he does his surgeries, I work with him in the field and go on all his emergency calls. And I love it. It's part of my life. And I don't want to change that. I like my priorities like they are. But on the other hand, I spend a great deal of time learning my trade, and I'd like to do something occasionally.
Kim Novak, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
He issued an ultimatum. He said, it's either the spider or me. Well, in fact, the spider stayed and he went.
I love animals, yes. What about you, Kim? Because you've got quite a menagerie, haven't you, where you live now?
Yes, I'm just enjoying your conversation about that. Don't you think it's also, though, a matter of the importance of why it's so important that these people are doing all of that, is that there's so many instincts that man have lost. I mean, they're not in tune with anymore. They're following everything by, not at all, they've lost their instinct, and we must keep these creatures going, because they're our only key to instinct again. They know, they have their instinct to survival, how to sense things that are going to happen and all. This is an important study. I think they are our main teachers. I find all the creatures that I come in contact with, they're my teachers.
I think one of the extraordinary things is, and it comes out, of course, in your book too, is this way that we are, in fact, drawing away the human race from an understanding of natural history.
Yeah.
The majority of people, I mean, kids nowadays, I mean, grow up without knowing what certain animals look like.
Oh, well, I mean, Conrad Lorenz, he thinks that this is one of the gravest things that's happening, is that children are growing up in cities, in totally urban backgrounds, thinking that man can make everything. A friend of mine was telling me the other day that he was quite horrified when, with one of his own children, who was offered a fish on a plate, and the child refused to eat it. And he realized why. Because the child had only met fish before in the shape of fish fingers, and actually didn't recognize the beast when it was put on a plate. Now, that's just one example of the sort of way in which we can grow apart from the real world. And live in
like snakes. Snakes have such a... we automatically, because of the Bible and everything, have this fear of snakes and think that they're some beastly thing. I had a pet snake that was absolutely marvelous creature. They'd been injured on the desert, and my horse and I found him when we were riding along one time, and we took him back, and his jaw was dislocated and had it fixed. And this creature, I thought, well, I'll turn it loose after it was well. And we had a little ceremony, a little party, turned it loose, and the creature wandered out, and then all of a sudden he realized he didn't want to leave. And he came back up and slithered up my horse's leg, who was not afraid of him at that time, because he was introduced to him in a proper way, where he didn't have a fear of them. And slithered back up, and we took him, and he lived quite happily with us for a number of years. And he was an incredible creature to learn. And when I called the zoo at first on how to maintain a snake, they said, oh, no, they don't like to be handled, they don't like this and all. It wasn't true at all. If you give respect, you get it back. And they do want, everything wants companionship. Yeah. And they'll share their innermost secrets with you if you're open with them and if you give to them. He used to climb up and always go riding with me, just wind himself up in my hair and ride on the horse and sleep under my pillow, and absolutely, his name was Sincerely, because that name was Sincerely. I often thought I'd write a book about him, really.
Your name was Medusa, wasn't it?
But he was absolutely marvelous.
Well, finally, Julian, what do you hope then at the end? You've done this series and done the book as well. What do you, I mean, obviously it's entertaining because obsessive people always are, aren't they?
The fact that the American public were shown on their television screens every night what was happening in Vietnam, it is said, was a very strong contributory factor to ending that war, and I suspect that it's true.
Was it, Kim? I mean, you were there, you were watching television every night when Vietnam was on. Did it affect you in that way?
Yes, of course. I think it definitely does. But in my opinion, I feel that, of course, there's going to be things that deter it and make you feel frightened of it, but I don't think you can stop the flow of it all. Somehow I have a feeling that these things are predestined anyway, that perhaps it's nice to try to, but that sometimes we have to say, whatever we do, we can't stop what's going to happen. It's maybe going to happen anyway, perhaps. But at least we can do everything we can. But at the same time, no more than we can stop death. I mean, we can say, look, what happens? You go to a certain age or whatever, and you're going to die. But we really can't change it, can we? I think
the world's got the same kind of time limit.
Well, I think so. I think so, really. Yeah. I think everything does.
Yeah. My thanks then to my guests tonight, Kim Novak, Julian Pettifer, Professor AJP Taylor, and to Rose Murphy. Reminder, my next show is on Saturday. Until then, from all of us here, very good night. Good night.